Welcome to Conversations with LSNTAP, where we meet interesting people and hear how they are increasing access to justice through technology. Here's your host, Shelley Reed.
Hey, thank you for joining us today. I'm Shelley Reed, manager of the LSNTAP, and today we have our guest, Joanne Sprague of Everlaw. Joanne, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Shelley. My name is Joanne Sprague, and I have the privilege of being the director of Everlaw's Everlaw for Good program, which is our initiative to support or legal aid nonprofits, pro bono programs, and investigative journalists in their pursuit of access to justice.
Awesome. So we're going to start with a little bit of introduction to you and how you got where you are today. So let's start there. How did you get where you are today, and what has your career path looked like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think from a very early age and early part of my career, I've just been very captivated by the power of business to enable social change. So I actually started off on my career in international development. I was in the Peace Corps in Kenya working with micro entrepreneurs, so focused on that power of business to create social change at a very local level. And then I worked in strategy development for a large corporate foundation in India for several years. I was always interested in taking that to a leadership level and running my own social enterprise and finding earned income models to create social change. So I went and got an MBA and then ran a business flavored nonprofit in the DEI space for a few years. After that, I ran out of money. It turns out I was not a great fundraiser, but I really enjoyed the programming and enablement aspects of the work that I had done. And I sort of fell into the tech space and spent a long tenure at Facebook and Meta running social impact partnerships and programs there through sort of the heyday of the growth of the company and its social impact initiatives. And then I've always been a big part of that enablement through technology has been for me about giving people voice and enabling the people power of what can happen when people come together to create social change and providing a platform for that change was really what attracted me to the access to justice space and to getting into leveling the playing field for justice. I don't have a legal background, but I have a lot of passion for enabling people to be represented, to have their voice, and to have their sort of opportunity for justice.
So after that, I kind of feel funny asking the next question. So, are there any social media channels that have helped in forging your career path or building your personal brand?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny. I had always been a really big believer in Facebook. I was, in 2000, March 2004, I remember getting the email inviting me as a college student to join the platform, and just have found it over most of my career, traveling and living internationally to be a really powerful way to keep in touch with friends and family, people I went to school with, people in other countries, etc. Obviously, everyone has their own version of the story of the company and where it has gone since then. But I also have to credit Facebook and its social graph with introducing me to my husband and enabling me to start a family. So I have a lot of respect for the company. I think it's a little bit of a different platform these days, and these days I find myself more drawn to things like LinkedIn and WhatsApp that are more sort of productivity oriented. But I will always have a soft spot in my heart for the Facebook of yore.
I think there's many of us that have that same soft spot for Twitter of yours.
Yes, that as well.
So that's really interesting. So, getting to know you a little better, tell us a little bit of what you like to do outside of work.
Yeah, so these days my life is pretty consumed with family. I have two small children, two girls, 3.5 and 1, and a large, very energetic dog. So those keep me pretty busy these days, outside of work. But sort of in the times before that became all consumptive, I love to travel, as you can probably imagine from my background, particularly to places that are new cultures, languages, new experiences. I really love to ski and to play rec softball and sort of get outside and be active.
Awesome. So now we're going to turn to Everlaw a bit. Can you tell us kind of the origin story of Everlaw, or a little bit about Everlaw's background and what Everlaw is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Everlaw is a litigation and investigation management software specializing in document review and e-discovery. The mission of the company is to promote justice by illuminating truth. We like to think of Everlaw as a truth-finding machine. And that mission, that vision is really important to our founder and CEO, AJ Shankar, who founded the company back in 2011 when he was actually getting his computer science PhD at UC Berkeley. And he ended up consulting as a technical expert for a plaintiff side class action firm, and became fascinated by the big data issues created by electronic discovery in legal content, and really felt that the law deserves state-of-the-art technology. And so he started building a platform to provide that. And so 13 years later, Everlaw's main value proposition is it provides litigators the ability to review case documents much more efficiently and effectively than before, to get the information they need so that they can better support clients, bring on new business, or in the case of Everlaw for Good, take on more and larger cases to help people who otherwise wouldn't have access to high quality legal representation.
So speaking of Everlaw for Good, what inspired the company to start the Everlaw for Good program? And then maybe tell us a little bit more about the program.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for a young company, we're 10, 13 years old, we have been very focused on social impact from a very early time. The Everlaw for Good program was started in 2017, and it's really based on sort of the ethos of this company and the mission around promoting justice by illuminating truth. I think AJ recognized very early on that the rule of law is incredibly important to a functioning civil society, but is not applied equally to all people, and saw that our tools could be used to contribute to helping to level the playing field for access to justice. And so the program actually started as an initiative for investigative journalists, sort of helping the fourth estate to illuminate truth and contribute to surfacing issues that otherwise might go without being uncovered. And then has grown from there over the past 7 years to be a program, an initiative to provide our product at free and heavily discounted rates to legal nonprofits, pro bono cases of law firms, investigative journalists, educators, and now even CJA panel attorneys in the criminal justice space.
Awesome. That's really interesting. So I guess as you've, Everlaw has grown in the field, what, I'm sure there are thoughts as to what is wrong with the discovery process today.
Yeah. So, I'm a newcomer to this space, but I've been amazed to learn about it. I think it's really been eye-opening for someone looking from the outside in, seeing how much e-discovery is, or discovery itself is still a very challenging and manual process, even after, decades of things becoming more online and more electronic, right? Paper records have largely been replaced by emails, chat messages, Slack channels, Zoom recordings, cell phone recordings, et cetera. And cases, we're seeing just ballooning. They have millions of documents, terabytes of data to go through. And the legal market still is depending so much on human analysis and going through line by line these texts and chats and emails. So the data volumes are rising exponentially, but the number of people working on these cases is flat, right? There's a limit to how much manual human review that we can do. And so legal teams are getting, even more strained. They're suffering through long hours doing manual tasks, things that they did not go to school for or enter the legal profession for. And I think that's exacerbated even more in the legal aid segment, right? With, organizations with fewer staff, less resources, and just many more constraints on their time and their resources to try to do the same level of work as a big law firm or a major corporation might do.
At a conference recently, someone actually told me, well, legal aid doesn't need e-discovery software. I was just flabbergasted that that was a thought out there. I certainly know that as a law student, I was tasked with going through photos from a client for a case, and I was given no warning about what one of the photos was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
Really.
um,
And
so
I think
a
I
very
hear that.
personal photo. Let's just say that.
Yes. Well, and, I hear that sometimes from legal aid organizations, and e-discovery is just a sliver of the access to justice gap, right? Of solving that gap. And, we have no sort of visions of grandeur that this is the solution that's going to solve all the problems that exist in the legal aid space. But what I have found talking to a lot of legal aid organizations and other legal nonprofits is that many of them are taking on pretty significant cases, right? The folks on the opposing side are often, defendants with the big law resources, or they're major corporations, or they're federal government agencies. And these folks have seemingly sort of endless resources and can just dump a giant discovery onto a legal aid organization, or in the case of a class action, there may be plaintiffs that even the organization doesn't know about without the benefit of discovery. And so being able to use technology to sort of hold their own against an opposing side can be what I think of as really sort of a secret weapon for legal aid organizations that are interested in taking on those larger and more complex litigations.
Yeah, I know for me as a law clerk, I was involved with family law cases, and I'm involved with Social Security disability cases, and those are just reams and reams of documents. And you have to go through them all, because you can't just assume that this stack isn't a there's not something important in there. So yeah,
Right.
it's a huge issue. But so what are some of the other myths and misconceptions about discovery that you encounter?
Yeah. So, I mean, to your point about the giant stacks of things to go through, and, figuring out whether or not you can go through it all. I think one myth that we've encountered is that humans have the capacity to manually review every document that come through discovery, right? Just with the proliferation of electronic documentation, it's just physically not possible, right? It just isn't the reality anymore. On the flip side, I think another myth is that using technology or AI or machine learning is sort of a shortcut that means that legal teams are not doing thorough due diligence, are bound to miss something, aren't doing right by their clients. And what I would purport and what Everlaw feels is that on the contrary, it's actually the obligation of legal teams, particularly those that are time and resource constrained, to use advanced analytics, to use the technology that is available and at our disposal to find and prioritize the most relevant evidence to more quickly and efficiently be able to serve their clients.
Interesting. So, what are some of the challenges that you have faced along the way with, Everlaw as a business, but also with the Everlaw for Good program?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big things on the general scale for Everlaw is legal teams feeling like they don't have the bandwidth or the capability to keep up with the pace of change in technology at large and in the legal tech sector. And I think that's just been exacerbated by AI. Some of these examples of fake citations and attorneys getting sanction in court make it feel very scary to adopt new technology, right? So I think that is definitely very, and the legal industry for very good reason is conservative, right? Is relatively risk averse, and so the sort of instinct to shy away from new technologies that could actually be really beneficial is very understandable, and is obviously a challenge to sort of adoption and to movement forward. In the case of legal aid organizations, you mentioned one challenge, which is, this isn't for me. This doesn't make sense, which is absolutely the case for some attorneys, some legal professionals, and some legal aid organizations, right? Not everyone does major sort of strategic litigation that has a heavy document load. But for those that do, I think one challenge and one sort of misperception I've seen is that high-powered technology is either unavailable to them or too complex or too expensive or will take too long to learn. I think it makes me so sad when I hear about an organization that declined to take on a case that really deserved representation because they sort of assumed that the other side was going to have too many resources or the discovery was going to be too overwhelming and resource intensive for them to be able to absorb it.
A personal frustration of mine is that how some legal aid organizations approach the decision on what cases will they take. Do we take one big case that consumes a lot of resources, or do we take 4 small cases? And I certainly understand helping more people, but sometimes it feels very inequitable you know to decline a case just because it's going to require those resources. um, I wish there was a solution that we could propose that everyone would have access to, you know, um, the legal resources that they need.
Well,
But
and
getting back to this,
I will just to that point credit you and LSNTAP for the work that you are doing to make that more possible, right? The work that you all do every day to provide, get technology resources into the hands of legal aid professionals to inform them about things that can make their work faster and more effective and more secure, I think is really making a huge difference in bringing legal aid organizations into that sort of 21st century technology that can, the goal of all of this is for more clients to be able to be represented and to have their day in court, or to have, proper and really highly effective legal representation. So thank you for the work that you do to close the justice gap every day.
well, I appreciate that, and that's one of the reasons I started this, video cast, is so that we can expose the field to new technologies and to new ideas, of new ways of doing things. So, how does Everlaw work? Can you talk a little bit about the nitty gritty and maybe some of the benefits for users?
Yeah, absolutely. So Everlaw is an AI-powered cloud-native investigation litigation platform. Our, sort of major thing that I think we help legal teams do is to uncover those pieces of information that are sort of a needle in a haystack that can make or break a case. Some of our major benefits are speed. So our platform processes data 10 times faster than legacy systems and 5 times faster than some of our cloud competitors. I think the data point that I often hear is 900,000 documents processed per hour. So, major cases can be run very efficiently and effectively on Everlaw. I've heard these stories of folks using sort of legacy e-discovery software where just loading a page in a review window can have some lag, and that's just completely unacceptable in my opinion. So speed is a big thing that our engineers have focused on. Innovation and rate of change. So unlike many legacy platforms that do one release a year or things at a slower pace, we have 13 releases a year every 4 weeks. We're really sort of based on almost a consumer style of engineering development, where there's just sort of an expectation of very rapid release and rapid change in response to feedback from the teams that we hear. So a strong focus on customer needs, and you can see that in our G2 and IDC rankings among e-discovery providers. And then collaboration and feature depth. So we like to think of ourselves as having a very intuitive interface that is sort of easy to learn, easy to understand, but does not come at the cost of feature depth and deep levels of customization and capability. One example of the sort of ways that we've been expanding beyond just sort of core e-discovery and document review, which is sort of our bread and butter, into more collaborative capabilities up and down the e-discovery tech stack, is we have a product called Story Builder, which is the legal industry's first free narrative building toolkit that allows teams to collaborate remotely to building their cases, prepare for litigation, do trial prep, deposition prep, et cetera, and have that all integrated with the document and data sets that they are working with.
That's really interesting, and you read my mind about answering how easy it is to use and things like that. So thank you for putting that into your answer.
Yeah.
Is Everlaw available to users across the country?
Yep, absolutely. And internationally as well. We have availability in the UK and Australia, as well as all 50 states in the US.
So if a legal aid or a nonprofit organization was interested in, harnessing the power of Everlaw, how would they go about doing so?
Well, the first thing they do would be to contact me and or to go onto our website, which we're in the process of updating. But there's an intake form where any nonprofit organization, pro bono attorney, investigative journalist, or educator can submit an interest form and share a little bit about their organization. That will soon turn into a very lightweight application form for folks to provide information about who they are, what they're working on, and why they can benefit from access to the Everlaw platform. And we have a very broad program. We have about 125 customers in the Everlaw for Good program right now. It's very open to organizations that work across low-income populations, civil rights and liberties, human rights, public rights, environmental rights. We sort of run the gamut. So it's not just legal aid organizations, although we love working with legal aid organizations to solve their e-discovery needs. So that's the program is designed to be very open and available to any organization that could benefit to help level the playing field for justice.
That's really awesome. Are there any success stories that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, too many to note. This is my favorite part of running this program because we have so many amazing partners that do this work just so impressively every day. But I'll share a couple. So we work with an organization called Civil Rights Corps, which is a civil rights organization challenging systemic injustice and criminalization of poverty in the American legal system. They were on manual review, like many organizations may be, going through PDFs and discovery and doing fines and storing things on SharePoint, until they took on a case back in 2018 involving the Tennessee misdemeanor probation system that involved about 300,000 documents worth of discovery. And they were just completely overwhelmed and realized that they needed a real, a modern technology solution for that. And so they got onto Everlaw for Good, and they were able to get through all the documents and essentially have said they've been able to hold their own against the defendants who hired these big law firms to try to bury them with documents. Since then, they've grown their use of Everlaw. They've used it across eight cases in 7 states. They say they've reduced the amount of data that they had to sift through by 50%, which has saved them months of manual review time and tens of thousands of dollars. So that's one we're really proud of and proud to support an organization that's really trying to break down the sort of systemic injustices in the criminal justice system. And then taking on a more international flavor, we work with a sort of partner set of organizations. So a small nonprofit based here in the Bay Area called the Center for Justice and Accountability, which frequently co-counsels with Wilson Sonsini, Goodrich and Rosati, big law firm with their pro bono practice, which is very well developed. And they have worked several cases in across the world, but a lot of the ones they've run on Everlaw have been in Latin America. And these are cases of human rights violators who have gone for 20, 30, 40 years with impunity and just, never had their cases really taken to court, in part because it's been so difficult to collect and sift through evidence, from essentially what has been, cold cases of, abuse and violation of human rights. And so the CJA and Wilson Sonsini have worked together on the Everlaw to use our collaboration abilities and our technology to automatically OCR and translate piles of case documents that are in Spanish and other languages, to collaborate across organizations and across years as, attorneys and pro bono folks and interns have come and gone, and then been able to keep their cases organized on our platform, that has led to them having several successes and being able to bring families and survivors justice through this sort of endless set of trials and appeals over the years.
Awesome. And I hope that we can see more. I mean, just mentioning that the OCR and translating, that's something that many struggle with in the legal aid space is, meeting the requirements that, the DOJ puts on translations. but also having things available, meeting their clients where they are. So that's something that I hope we'll see some progress in the future with all of the generative AI that's coming out.
Yeah,
So
this is another one where, technology has actually been around for a remarkable amount of time. And so the idea that you'd have to send something out for translation or wouldn't be able to have it immediately OCR'd or integrated into a platform, this is very solvable with technology, right? The Center for Justice and Accountability said the first time they saw a demo of Everlaw, they were like, wait, this is magic. And we were like, no, this is just technology. It's not that complicated to do, but the sort of barriers to entry in the space are such that anything that we can do to get these tools into the hands of folks who can use them and make it, like the push of a button to get these solutions is gravy for us.
So you've mentioned several times now the heart for justice that Everlaw has, and we know that there is just a chasm of access to justice. They call it a gap, but it's just huge and seemingly unsolvable. But I don't believe that that's the truth. I think we have to find different ways to solve it. So as far as discovery, are there changes in the way discovery is handled that could help in this access to justice problem?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, like I said earlier, listen, we're not delusional that discovery is the answer, right? And that getting through these case documents is going to solve the massive multi-layered set of problems that have created the longstanding access to justice chasm, both in this country and globally. So we recognize that this is just a sort of small sliver of the solution. But like I mentioned, with the proliferation of documentation and just the massive explosion of electronic information to go through, we do think that there is an opportunity to really dramatically reduce the amount of time spent on discovery, the amount of resources that are put towards it. To enable organizations to take on more cases, to not be afraid of the discovery needs and the resource requirements, and to be able to sift through and often find buried in that documentation. I think I mentioned additional plaintiffs, additional parties, evidence that might not otherwise have been uncovered or what might not have been able to be prioritized by using really modern search tools, data visualizations, advanced analytics, et cetera. So to me, the first step for solving this, small sliver of the access to justice challenge is just getting these under-resourced organizations off manual discovery and into modern technology. So honestly, I don't care. Use us, use our competitors if they work better for you. Just get onto some modern discovery tech. And then I think the next step, in the discovery space is really building more capabilities and efficiencies up and down the e-discovery tech stack. So that's, document management, legal holds, information governance on the earlier stage, and then the integration of, deposition and trial prep. This is where generative AI can be really valuable for narrative building and drafting and things like that. Story building, et cetera, is sort of where I think the e-discovery and document review industry can play very effectively. And then, beyond discovery, I'm really interested in a lot of I know this is an area that LSNTAP has been very involved in, is how the legal tech space can support more self-representation, more sort of pro se, obviously we've talked a little bit about human review, but the human element of this challenge, just the numbers just don't work, right? There are so vastly more people who need legal support than there are attorneys in the world, with the hours in their careers to be able to help them. And so I'm really fascinated by some of the work that organizations like the Justice Tech Association and other startups that are using modern technology to get, legal guidance into the hands of people to figure out self-representation opportunities, to get better technology in courtrooms, really just to enable more opportunities for people to get support, regardless of whether they can afford and or access, professional legal help. And I think
100%
that the
agree.
legal tech industry has, an opportunity through volunteering, through skills-based work, through partnerships to really help to bolster that industry and help it grow even more over the next several years.
Yeah. We in the legal field are failing in meeting the needs of people, and some of it is built into our structure and our protectionism of the, of legal, and it's a shame. So, and I must say that I really am. We're working on here at LSNTAP, working on providing resources that can be of help when a legal aid organization can't serve someone, providing that resource of, a list of companies who may be able to assist that person since the legal aid organization is not able to. So I think alternative means are the only way that we're going to address that gap. So digging in a little bit deeper to discovery, what advice might you give to someone who is struggling with the discovery process? I mean, other than calling you up and saying, "Hey, I need help," are there things that they can do?
I mean, that, it's hard for me to say much other than, take the leap and get onto a discovery platform. I think there's a lot of education to be done around using technology, right? Trying things out, doing test cases, just dipping your toe in the water. For one of the reasons that we make the Everlaw for Good program, everyone gets a free tier of service, is to make it lower risk, right? There are obviously the sort of fear and risk barriers. There are the time associated with ramping up on a new platform or getting to new technology barriers, and then there are the cost barriers. So, we try to address the cost barrier and to some extent the time and ramp up time barrier by making it very easy to use and intuitive and providing unlimited support and education and training. But there is some switching costs to doing anything. And I think the best things that folks can do is to put in a little bit of time that will pay massive dividends over the course of a given case, over the course of their career, over the course of the trajectory of their organization. And, once you get going on it, most of the folks that we see in our program, they start with one case and then it becomes sort of just part of the workflows and part of the process of what they do. So I would just really encourage folks to try it out. And it's not just e-discovery, right? Try out consumer-based generative AI tools, right? Try out different case management technologies, just to sort of get in the game. I am not an early adopter of tech, so I understand the reticence to get onto these platforms and to learn them. I understand it can be frustrating and challenging and like, where is this button and how do I do it? No, I broke something, right? But I think once you get over that hump, it is so powerful. And it, like if you just think, if I think about being a legal professional trying to manually review documentation, I would much rather learn a technology, and be able to do it in a more effective and efficient way, and move on to the things that I find more exciting and strategic for and effective for my clients.
That's really awesome. And I really liked that you included that there was training available and assistance and help available for your clients. That is so important. And we also need to stress for organizations to use the available help and assistance. Because I think we're all guilty at some point of, getting something new and not opening the manual.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. And it's scary to
so
like click on the button or call the 800 number. But I will say with our Everlaw for Good customers, anytime I get on the phone with someone who's used our platform, one of the first things they say is, "I am so grateful for your support team." They sit here in our Oakland office, and I talk to them all the time, and they are just really dedicated people. They are on nearly 24/7. They go really above and beyond to solve the challenges that they encounter in their ticketing queues very quickly, nights and weekends, et cetera. And I think they have a real particular soft spot for Everlaw for Good clients that come through their doors. So I'm really grateful to them, and I think our customers have reflected the same.
Awesome. So how do you measure at the end of the day, how are you measuring the impact of the Everlaw for Good program?
Yeah, so I love this question because we just went through a big strategic planning process around it. So the mission of the program is to help contribute to leveling the playing field for justice. And so we really aim to measure our impact by the number of people who are getting more access to justice as a result of the program who otherwise might not receive it. Now, this is difficult to measure at a very broad scale. So what we've settled on for the moment, and we'll always iterate our sort of impact metrics and theory of change, is trying to increase the number of cases that are represented and supported on our platform through Everlaw for Good. So at the end of the last fiscal year, we had 220 active cases in our program, each representing, one or more people, often class action. So often many, many more people getting the support of a legal team who might not otherwise get it. And our goal this fiscal year, is to up that by 60% to 350 cases under management.
Awesome. So hopefully we will help get the word out and help you get to that
That would
goal.
be wonderful.
So we heard some success stories earlier, but is there a particular story that touched you personally and let you know that you were on the right path and that you joined the right company?
Yeah, there have been many. It's the ones that I really have a soft spot for are these ones where you just see this such a clear example of sort of a David versus Goliath case. So when I heard recently, talking to one of our customers, who's a legal aid organization in New York City, is a case of source of income discrimination against the defendants are landlords and brokers who have systematically refused, allegedly, the complaint alleges that they have systematically refused to rent stabilized housing units in New York City to Section 8 federal voucher holders. So these are folks who are often, one paycheck away from homelessness. They find a unit that works for them. They, qualify on all the other capabilities. And then because they're a Section 8 voucher holder, they're only responsible for 30% of the posted rent. The rest comes from the government. And then they mention or disclose that they, or ask what the logistics would be of paying their rent through the Section 8 voucher. And the landlord or broker says, oh, sorry, there's a minimum income requirement that is a multiple of the posted rent. And it's actually impossible for a person to both make that minimum income and qualify for the voucher. So they have just created sort of a systematic loophole that makes these folks ineligible for those rent stabilized units. In doing this investigation, this legal aid organization, in partnership with others, found not one, not five, there are 88 defendants in this case among landlords and brokers, and this has been written about in the New York Times. So to me, obviously, I don't know what the outcome of the case will be, but when I hear about the claims that are being made, it feels like such a blatant systematic nature of discrimination that is so very clear that, of who, has the power and has the opportunity in this space. But it's actually hard to uncover that information, right? It's not obvious at the first go that this is systematic. It's not obvious that there are, thousands and thousands of Section 8 voucher holders who might be affected by this. It's not obvious that there are 88 landlords and brokers who might be practicing the same form of discrimination. And so thinking about all the documentations, the patterns you need to uncover to be able to gather and prove that this defensibly in court makes me very confident that our platform is making a significant contribution to uncovering that truth, to illuminating those that discriminatory pattern, and to helping to promote justice.
That's awesome. You think, that one email, or that one note that might lead to other pieces of evidence. So that's really awesome. It'll be a fun case to watch.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wind down here, what are you mentioned earlier trying to increase the number of cases, but are there other goals and visions for the future of the program?
Yeah, I mean, my vision is I want this program to be used by every nonprofit, legal aid organization, pro bono practice, or investigative journalist that could benefit from this kind of technology to help their clients. So that my goal is really sort of unfettered growth to the extent that I can make it happen. I also want our product to grow with the program. I want it to learn from feedback from legal aid organizations, from pro bono attorneys, and become iteratively more efficient, more effective, more attuned to the use cases of these organizations, to better support and scale the needs of the access to justice community. And I think if ultimately, if we can be a small part of helping organizations do their work more efficiently, we can make a small dent in that, 4.5 billion person justice gap.
That's awesome. So what is one question and the answer that you would wish to be asked in an interview and nobody does?
um I don't know if you've noticed my focus on growth and adoption of this program, but the question I want to hear is, can I introduce you to this organization? It would be a perfect fit for your program and for your technology. And the answer would be yes, please. Send me an email, respond to our intake form, get in touch. That's
Awesome.
probably the biggest one.
That's good. Good question, good answer. So kind of on those lines, how can people support Everlaw for Good or get involved with your mission? So kind of in line with that last question.
Yeah, absolutely. We just would love folks to spread the word and help raise awareness to organizations that might be a fit for this. We have no profit motive to growing this program. It's really purely based on the mission and the values of the company, and we're lucky enough to be able to support it. So we'd love referrals of organizations or legal professionals, industry experts who you think could help scale the program. We'd love to just build sort of word of mouth among legal aid organizations and other nonprofits that this program exists, that it's available, and encourage folks to come and find us and apply. And, it's a very easy way to get in touch, obviously direct getting in touch, but our website, which is everlaw.com/Everlaw for Good. And, that we aim to make it really easy for folks to get in and then have a very quick turnaround on approvals and getting their databases set up.
Super. So one last question. What is your favorite app right now and why? Or what tech tip do you have for our listeners?
Absolutely. So, this is so utilitarian and not like exciting or spicy, but you may have noticed my focus on efficiency and productivity and really using technology to make a person's life easier. My probably my favorite and most used app that I use 1,000 times a day is 1Password. So I am not an early tech adopter, as I mentioned, especially when it comes to security, as my husband can attest. But it's actually not, I mean, having a password manager, it has obvious major cybersecurity benefits, but it's actually not even the security benefits that get me on this one. And I promise I'm not being paid by 1Password for this promotion. It's the productivity and the ease of use. So I spent years being one of those people who had like a spreadsheet with all my passwords and usernames on it. And I would, go download it on my phone on the terrible like Excel version of mobile. And I would open it up with a password and I would try to find and search for the password and then copy and paste. It was terrible. And now I literally one click, I have a Face ID that opens it up for me. It pre-autofills and I'm just in, and it just makes my life so much easier. I don't have to think about it. And I just, obviously have more confidence that I'm not going to have my identity stolen or get hacked. And it has completely changed the game, in my opinion, in terms of password management and security.
They don't have to be flashy, they just have to work.
Yep.
So,
100%.
and I love that. Sometimes people try to find, the latest thing but this the basics. You have to cover the basics before you worry about the flashy stuff. So I love password managers. So thank
And
you
all
so
those
much.
flashy apps, you need a password to get into them, and you want to make sure it's secure. So there you go. It's all platform based.
Absolutely. It works. Well, Joanne, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been a really interesting discussion. You know, I have a personal passion for e-discovery. It was something that I thought that it could be where I ended up in my career. So it's fun to kind of revisit that piece of my life. But I really enjoyed sharing the Everlaw for Good program, and I hope that many of our listeners will take advantage of the program and help you get to those goals, but mainly so that they can help their clients um, solve those cases and the problems that are bringing them to legal aid in the first place. So thank you so much. Do you have any last thoughts?
No, thank you. Just thank you, Shelley, for providing all the LSNTAP resources to the community, for building up such an amazing community of practice, and for having this podcast and for allowing me to share a little bit of our story. I am so grateful to you and to the organization, and I look forward to continuing to partner and to hearing from any folks who listen to this podcast who are interested in Everlaw for Good.
Awesome. And thank you, audience, for joining us today. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you next time.